Could somebody help me understand what is this obsession with trans people the right has?
I have been waiting for a cis white lady to sincerely ask this question for so long. And this is like the deep, mind-blowing, real answer to this question. The perspective-changing answer to this question. They cannot uphold the patriarchy. They can't do gender-based oppression on you guys if we are allowed to exist freely. Let me explain. What trans people, what gender non-conforming people, what intersex people do by existing is challenge gender as a binary, as two rigid, inherent categories. We are a proof that that's not real. So any gender-based oppression that they try and subject you to is fucking meaningless. Because if you stop believing that because you're born in a body, you have some inherent qualities to you, they can't tell you what you can and cannot do. Their justification for punishing you for doing anything that they deem incorrect falls apart completely. Because if people can switch categories and exist in between them and redefine them as they would like for themselves, it's no longer an exclusionary category, it's just a word that describes things. And we're going to go a layer deeper now, because to understand all this, you have to understand the history of colonialism and how we got to where we are in our systems of oppression as a whole. Christian European nations began to expand out of Europe. They genocided and colonized a bunch of indigenous people all over the world and began to enslave them, wipe them off of their land, and take all of their resources. In that process, they also wanted to enforce the values that they believed in, the ones taught specifically by the Roman Catholic Church, which included ways of enforcing sex and gender binaries for the purposes of keeping women in a subservient place in society and wiping people like me out of European societies or like post-Roman conquest societies after Rome converted to Christianity. So back to like the 1500s, these colonists are genociding a bunch of indigenous people. Genocide by definition includes destruction of the culture. Included in these cultures were places for non-binary, intersex, trans people to exist and hold positions in society. The colonists put an end to that violently as they subjugated the places they conquered. They murdered us. They aligned us with demons, with the devil, in the religion that they imposed on those indigenous people as a control mechanism. And they also passed laws against our existence that they would enforce through heinous violence. And that's how they got us to go underground. They forced us out of public society and killed anyone who didn't conform to that. Examples of that in the last century are Hitler, starting with us, using the book burnings as a way to generate support for the Nazi Party by targeting us. And then when the concentration camps were liberated, they left us behind. After that, in America, you have the Lavender Scare. You have queer bashing. You have all the police raids on gay clubs and bars, leading to the Stonewall uprisings and the movements that got us a lot of our rights that we have today. It's why they let us die to the AIDS epidemic without saying a goddamn word. And our oppression wouldn't be possible had they not also subjugated entire nations of BIPOC people. And that's why they're coming after us today. If you ever realize that gender is made up, you might realize that race is made up. You might realize that ableism, ability, is made up. And the judgments, the dismissals, the dehumanization we subject these groups of people to becomes less and less easy to tolerate. Because it's clear that it's not inherent to them. It's inherent to how we treat them, how they treat us. They have to ban us from public bathrooms because otherwise people might notice that we're more free than them. They have to make it true that we are less free by passing laws, or risk feeling threatened in their power, risk losing their mechanisms for control, which is why anyone who calls themselves a feminist, an anti-racist, a disability rights advocate, also needs to be a trans advocate. And it's why anyone who's a trans advocate also needs to be all those other advocates. Our liberation is tied together. You can't be free from patriarchy until we're free from transphobia. You will not be free before that happens. And we won't be free until we free black people from the racism and carceral system. And all three of us won't be free until the three of us stop trying to kill disabled people and give the land back to the indigenous people who we stole it from. Otherwise, none of this heals, and they're gonna keep coming after us one group at a time, because that's what fascists are all about. Control. And it inevitably concludes in controlling who can and cannot exist. So there you go. Hope that answers your question. Have a nice day now.